Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fuel for the Spirit on AM 570, the Mission WMCA. I'm your host, Denise Richardson. Well, there are so many moments in our lives when we all feel like we're running on empty. So much to do, and yet we have so little time to get things done. So little hope, so many dreams, and yet we make dreaming the object, not fulfilling them. How do we change that? With the help of Fuel for the Spirit and the Almighty, we set out to remind you every week that we can learn from one another how to live our best lives every Saturday night right here at 8:30. Well, this evening I'm introducing you to the Salvation Army Phil Ramone Orchestra for Children. So how did I come to know about the Salvation Army Phil Ramone Orchestra for Children? Before my life here, I was the director of communications at the Salvation Army here in Greater New York. And with my involvement at PBS, I co-host the Pledge Drive on PBS as well. I had the distinct pleasure of working with Phil on one of our PBS shows, and then got to know him a little bit and asked him to come to a Salvation Army luncheon back in the day. So that's pre-2011. Now I'm looking at Envoy Kenneth Burton, who's the current musical director of this musical program. But when I brought Phil to the Army, I didn't bring him with the intention of, well, let's consider starting some kind of a music program. That evolved with the then Colonel Klemanski. So the discussions went on, and before you know it, the music program was born for youngsters in Harlem. We also have on the phone Phil Ramone's brother-in-law, Doug Ichiuji, who's an executive with U.S. Bank in Washington, D.C. Now, Doug, what I knew about Phil was that he was a technical wizard. He was known for that throughout Hollywood and around the world. Also, he was probably the most beloved producer ever. What do you say to all that?
And it has become, the program has become to many of the children, what shall I say, one of the best things in their lives to this day.
What's amazing is the energy that comes from these children as it relates to sitting down to play as an orchestra. It's that, being part of something bigger than yourself. And there's not every kid who is loved at home. There's not every kid who has the ability to participate in something that's better for them. You've met some of those children, and I actually met one young lady that I'll never forget when I said to her, she was in tears, she was acting out. Mm-hmm. She was in tears, and for some reason I had the feeling, and I said, do you feel loved? And she said no. And if she was crying before, she was hysterical crying after that. So it helps with that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'll never forget a young man, his first name was Malcolm, back at 2012 when the Salvation Army honored Phil Ramone, and Malcolm stood in front of 1,000 people, says, before this orchestra,
you're about to cry. I know.
I was nobody, and today I am somebody. When Malcolm said that, it made it all worth it.
And Phil, that night, Aretha, I'm sure they're having a ball in heaven, the two of them.
Oh yeah.
Aretha was a big fan of Phil. I actually worked with Aretha as well, and when I mentioned we were going to honor Phil, she said I have to be there. Right. But to hear a child say that's so extraordinary. Mm-hmm. We also have on the phone Camille Forbes. Mrs. Forbes is a principal at PS 206, and many of the children come from PS 206.